Authentic Parenting, a podcast about personal development in the context of parenting, where I explore how you can find more calm, connection, and joy in parenting through the process of self-discovery and inner growth with a trauma-informed lens. Today, how to make decisions. When was the last time you made a great decision? Or perhaps a bad one that backfired and you feel regretful? Every day we make decisions. Big ones, small ones, important ones, and insignificant ones. What kind of process do you go through? As it turns out, having clear values that you try to live by can make tough decisions easier. Instead of limiting yourself to a yes or no choice, brainstorm all the possible options before making a decision. You may find compromises and alternatives that weren't easy to see initially. In fact, consider too whether you actually need to make a decision. In some cases, it's fine to simply let a choice pass by without committing either way. My guest today is Christine Jawad. She's a life coach and educator. Trained as a massage therapist, later she became a Montessori directress. She earned a master's in education in curriculum and instruction, completed parent-teen meditation training, and advanced training in compassionate communication. She co-founded a nonprofit whose mission is to teach young people and the adults who care about them how to make great decisions so they can get clarity and take action. You can learn more about their work and philosophy and their VIDA method of decision-making on their website, clarityforaction.org. Clarity, the number 4 action.org. I used this episode for a personal coaching session, and I confess about a recent impulsive decision that I made, and my guest Christine kindly coaches me. I walk away with some surprising discoveries. We also tackle a question from our Facebook community from a frustrated mom who asks about handling a pretty common yet tricky situation with her 9-year-old daughter who lied to her mom after she made big mess in her room. You get the idea. I really loved how Kristen explained the situation from understanding both the needs of the mom and of the girl. If you are in our Facebook community, I will bump this post so that you can see how other parents offered suggestions, very contradictory suggestions, including taking this little girl's bike away as a consequence. And if you're not in our Facebook community, I warmly invite you to join us. Ever since the pandemic started, I've been offering free weekly support calls. Visit authenticparenting.com and click the yellow button to join our community. I promise you won't regret. Currently, we have a book club going on in our group, and we are reading a very enlightening and important book by Thich Nhat Hanh called Anger, Wisdom for Cooling the Flames. For full episode show notes, additional free resources on parenting, contact info, and yes, I would love to hear from you, and ways to work with me, visit authenticparenting.com. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you are enjoying the content, be sure to rate and review it on Apple Podcasts. If you want to know what I'm up to in my personal life, and hint, it's not glamorous, see behind the scenes of podcasting, how I come up with titles for my episodes, get interesting and inspirational content on personal development and parenting, participate in my book giveaways, and so much more. Follow me on Instagram. My handle is authentic.parenting.podcast. And now, please enjoy this interview/coaching session with Kristen Jawad. Kristen, welcome to Authentic Parenting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, now you are on my show, and I'm so excited to talk about decision making and the framework that you've created and everything in between. As a parent, we have to make lots of small and big decisions, a lot, right? But oftentimes, parents doubt themselves, second guess the decisions that they made, question themselves, and they don't feel confident. First, I want to ask you, why are you so passionate about this topic?
Yes, absolutely. I think back to my oldest child is 21 this month, and my second child is 17. And I think back to the time that they were infants and wanting to follow instinctually what would bring me closer and connected to them, and also being overwhelmed with all the parenting information and the parenting styles and philosophies and books and advice that I was surrounded with, and having to figure out what actually felt right in my heart and made sense in my head. So I think that, every parent goes through some of that process, and maybe it's easier for some more than others.
Yes. So a good decision is when you involve your mind and your heart.
Absolutely, because if we ignore the feelings, then we'll end up being dissatisfied or we'll lack motivation to actually take action. I think we spoke before about the VITA model that my co-founder Amy and I developed for our nonprofit called Clarity for Action. And there's a 4-step process involved in VITA. And I love the fact that VITA means life in Spanish. So if you don't mind, I'll explain a little bit to you about how we created the framework and then some of the decision process that we teach parents and young people.
Yes, please.
Okay. So with the VITA method, we start with values. It's really important, like we mentioned, about knowing what's in your heart, really who you are, your core values, your preferences, and your strengths. And we can supercharge our ability to plan and set goals and move forward on our decisions when they're grounded in our core values, right? So sometimes we get down the path or we get stuck and we find some roadblocks and we wonder, why am I doing this? Why is this important to me? Or when we're in a moment of frustration with our child, why are we tangled up here? And recognizing, wait a minute, I can revisit my values and what's actually core to my interaction with my child, like the long-term vision. And I think that helps us ground in moments of frustration, and we can go back and get back on that, bike and pedal again. Yeah. So yeah. I think that values are so important.
Me too. Yes. Can I just interject here and say, I start my work with investigating and exploring one's values. I believe whatever we do in life is deeply rooted in our values. We may not know or be aware of them, right? But we do certain things because we believe in certain things, because we hold a certain value. We just don't blindly live our lives, right? Yesterday, I was speaking with someone and I asked him, what are your core values? And he had a very, very hard time. And I asked him other guiding questions, such as, what's important to you? When was the last time you did something important and it felt great for you? And I tried to guide him. I'm wondering, before we move deeper into the VITA model, can you help a person with their values? How can someone get in touch and know what their values are, besides giving them a list of values and saying, can you choose your values from here? Are there any exercises, questions? I'm just curious if you have anything.
Yes. So I don't know if you're familiar with compassionate communication, also known as nonviolent communication.
Yes.
So I refer to the needs list sometimes, and it's a little bit different than values list. But human needs are universal, timeless, and when I'm triggered in the moment and feeling frustrated, instead of looking at the other people that are involved at what's, we sometimes think that this is what's causing the frustration. But what I look to is, what is my unmet need in this moment? Because it helps me understand what I'm feeling. So I don't know that we can separate our, the experience that we have when it's the feelings and needs. But when we have unmet needs, I think it really shines a light on why we might be feeling angry or frustrated. And it's a consciousness practice. I think journaling, some people like to journal and they do gratitude practice. So sometimes we can think about that might be the back door to finding out what we value, is when we feel grateful for something or we're mourning something like an unmet need, maybe for community or for support or for understanding. So we can, whatever we call them, values or needs, I think that it's, these words are trying to describe the things that are important to us, and we notice it when it's missing.
Yeah, I love that. I also talk about needs a lot. I want to take advantage of you and put you on the spot for a moment here. And excuse me for doing that, but I think this is a good example. Amy from the Authentic Parenting community, one of our avid listeners, posted yesterday something on Facebook. And I'm wondering if together we can speak about the need or the value of this person in this particular parenting situation. It's very quick and very short.
I'd love that.
We don't have to go into detail of giving her advice, but just to dissect from this scenario, the need or the value of this mom, right? She posts, okay, what would you guys do in this situation? My 9-year-old took food upstairs and used her carpet as a wipe. No foods allowed upstairs, and I just cleaned the floors yesterday. Ouch, right? Then used her cheer makeup, $50, Urban Decay brand, to prank her aunt while on video chat with her cousin, doing same thing with her play makeup. Then got it all on that room's clean carpets. Then came down and showed me she does have play makeup. I said, you didn't use your cheer makeup. No, mommy, no. She also lied. How would you handle this situation? So this girl is 9 years old, has expensive makeup, $50, and play makeup. She used it. She lied. It's on the carpet. Mom just cleaned the floors. What's the need of the mom, and the child maybe?
Yeah. I mean, this is a great example. I think from a parenting perspective, I would say the internal dialogue that's going to happen for Amy, she probably saw the makeup on the floor, and then I'm going to empathically guess, Amy, are you feeling frustrated and shocked because you see makeup and food on the carpet?
Mm-hmm.
And then I would guess the values. Do you value order and cleanliness? And that sounds kind of robotic, but in the mind, it's like we want to make sure that it's not really about what the child has done. It's that she actually values cleanliness and order. I mean, that's the main thing right there, right?
Yes. Or I would say, if I was Amy, I value cleanliness and order, but I also am tired and sick of cleaning after you, right? Maybe there is that other need of being underappreciated, my husband not helping me, and I'm frustrated because of that. All the work is on me, right? We can dig deeper and see what's really going on for Amy?
Amy feels overwhelmed, I'm guessing. I think
Mhm.
Amy would appreciate some being seen for all that she does,
Yeah.
right? Being
Mhm.
appreciated and knowing that she also, I mean, maybe she hasn't been actually caring for herself. Maybe she's feeling depleted and there's a secondary piece of that, which is that the child said no, like they didn't accept responsibility for what they did. But for this moment right now, just this, yeah, the flood of emotions, it can be really complicated and layered. Yeah,
Yes.
feeling overwhelmed at and maybe she has a story in her mind that she has the responsibility because she's the mom to make sure that everything is clean and organized and well cared for. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves about our roles and responsibilities. So just recognizing and connecting. So Amy, we've identified, that she's feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, depleted, possibly. We're just guessing. And then Amy can answer for herself. Is this true for you? And you probably have a sense because she's from your community, if that rings true. I know I've had moments in my parenting life where, that would definitely ring true for me. Yeah, just feeling exhausted.
Hmm. And how about the 9-year-old child who used her expensive? I'm sensing also Amy has something around the money,
Yeah.
right? Because the
Yeah.
$50 Urban Decay makeup versus play makeup. But I also want her to see that what her daughter did when she put on the Urban Decay makeup or the other makeup is not such a big difference for the child, right? The child doesn't know which one is more
Mm-hmm.
expensive. She just used the makeup to prank
Right.
her aunt. But as a result, maybe it fell on the floor, on the carpet. It's a disaster.
Yeah, caring for our resources. I mean, I'm guessing that's one of her strongest values, caring for the resources, caring for the carpet, caring for the home, caring for, the supplies, whether they're makeup or art or, food. It can be anything can be our trigger. Yeah, and it points us directly to our values. She cares for resources.
Good point, Kristen. Yeah, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that we did this because it helps the listener who can be in this situation, right? This is a very common parenting situation. And there was a suggestion to take her bike away from her. People go immediately into punishment, into punitive
Absolutely.
mode. But when we dissect it like this, when we see where the child was coming from, what was happening for the child, and what's happening for the mother in terms of needs and values, the situation changes and the decision we make, I'm guessing you can perhaps speak about that, will be different as opposed to this reactive decision making in the process. I'm going to take your bike away for a week.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up that point because how we respond when we're frustrated also teaches in that moment. And we want to make sure that it's in alignment with our values. So if we go straight to punishment, taking away resources, and we don't even have a conversation about, I think it's important to reveal what's going on as a parent, age appropriate, of course. If her daughter's 8 or 10 years old, she's going to be able to have some kind of a conversation where the mom can express her feelings. She can express her concerns and what she values. And then they can talk about solutions of how this can be mended. How can they restore the trust of sharing resources, the trust of, the bedroom staying clean, the trust of her daughter being able to choose decisions that are even aligned with her own values, right? I mean, and it's a learning process. We all make mistakes. We all do things and we may not be able to anticipate the consequences of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I don't think taking a bike away or going into punishment is what she actually wants to teach her daughter. I think if she wants to focus on caring for resources, I mean, we should ask Amy, what would you like to do to invite your daughter to think about the resources, like the makeup that's on the floor? What can be done? What can we do here? Instead of immediately as a parent thinking of, I need to go into punishment mode or I need to go into teaching mode, if we're grounded from a place of like curiosity, and sometimes being befuddled, I don't know what to do in this moment, but just expressing to her daughter, like, I'm so frustrated right now, I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, I use that sometimes because I simply don't know how to respond. And I need time to figure out, I don't want to be reactive, but I also want to be somewhat responsive and communicate clearly. And in order to do that, I need time to get in touch with my parenting goals, with my needs and my values. I need to go away from this situation and think about that. Because in the moment, it's hard to access what are my core values? What need am I missing? Like you said, we're not robots, you know?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So in this moment, we could say to Amy, what do you want your child to do? And what do you want her reason for doing it to be?
Mm-hmm.
That takes it to a deeper level, because she could say, honey, I want you to clean this up right away, and I don't ever want you to do that again. Well, that's not very likely that it's going to address, things repeat.
Yes.
If you don't actually address. So that's the longer teaching moment, right? What do you want your child to do? And what do you want her reason to be for doing it? So it's not because her mom requested her to clean it up, right? I think she's now it's about responsibility and recognizing how we use our space and how we treat the things that we have, and just being aware. And when there is a mistake or we've done something that we regret, what can we do about it?
Yes, all great points. Well, great. Thank you for being so eager and open to tackle this real example from our community that came in just today. So let's move on to your framework. Is there anything else in the Vita model about the V, or can we move on to the next letter?
Oh, we can move on to the next letter. So it's internal operating system, and that kind of sounds robotic, but it's really about my internal operating system as a human being. And we're not going to go deep into brain science, but we all know that we have two parts of our brain that basically function with the fight, flight, freeze, or the rest, digest, and calm mode. And so when we talk about emotional regulation and working with our brain, using habits to our advantage, when we can understand how our feelings and our external inputs impact our thinking, we realize we actually have choice points. So we have system 1 in the brain and system 2 in the brain. And one is kind of habitual thinking and habits and instinct, kind of like autopilot. And the other part is conscious, slow, thoughtful. Whenever we're learning a new skill, like riding a bike, for example, that takes effort and concentration. But when we become an expert and we've done it for a few hundred hours of practice, then we don't think about it anymore. And it's ingrained in our muscle memory. So some of these habits that we form start in childhood. And as someone who really values self-development and conscious parenting, we also get the opportunity to recognize, is this something that serves me and serves the people around me? Are these the habits that I want to continue with? Because we also have the ability to change our habits when we're conscious of them, right?
But it's so hard to change the habit. I mean, it's so easy to acquire negative and bad habits that they like, you learn so fast. But when you want to unlearn a habit, it takes so much concentration, consciousness, awareness, and so much effort that eventually you give up, right? I mean, we've all done this.
Yeah.
Right?
It's true. Yeah. I think it takes support, and then it also is an awareness of, there's little tricks that we can use, like habit cues. For example, I know as a parent, sometimes it's a challenge for me to remember to build some physical and joyful movement to my day. And so if I happen to keep a yoga mat or maybe an exercise ball in the living room where I'm going to see it, I will be more likely to use it because it's right there. So sometimes replacing habits, if we can make an easy path to it. Instead, if I have to go down, to my gym, to my workout room, it's an extra few steps. It's not in my path. But if it's in my living room, it's right there. Like, it's a reminder for me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more that we could go into about, our brain science and habit change, but I want to introduce you to the decision process. So the decision process was developed about 45 years ago. It's still being taught at Stanford University. A lot of executives are trained in decision quality. And Amy and I decided that there was something useful about this model that could be applied to person-centered decision making. And so we took this clear 6-step process, and we wanted to help people have a simple tool. And the 6 steps are starting with a frame. So it's about, what am I deciding? It's one decision. And sometimes decisions can be complex. They can be contingent on other decisions. But we start with a decision. And then it's a slow process. This is one of the thoughtful processes, right? Because we're consciously trying to use a tool to evaluate what our alternatives could be. And I think sometimes we start with a bias in our brain. We're like, it's either or. Should I do X or should I do Y? Should I quit my job or should I stick it out? Should I make lasagna for dinner or should I order takeout? So it's like we get stuck in these either ors. And if we look at our alternatives, sometimes we can come up with hybrid solutions, and we can come up with multiple scenarios that we can evaluate to get more of our needs met. I like to talk about synergistic satisfiers. And I think I want to give an example so that it feels real. Like, how can we apply this in our family?
Mm-hmm.
For example, we may talk about our family wants to go on vacation. And so instead of choosing Mexico or Hawaii, we can talk about other alternatives, and slow the process down so that when we actually spend time together, we make sure that we hit our big rocks, like whether it's what the family values is relaxation, maybe it's about the activities that we can do together, maybe it's about, because when you go on vacation and you spend the money and time to go there, you want to make sure that you're actually going to be satisfied in the end. So spending some time talking about what people value is also important in that process. So, and then you can, and it's unlimited, the alternatives that the kids and the parents can come up with if they're doing a brainstorm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then collecting information. So some of the important information may be, how much does it cost to go on these different trips? Or what's involved? Like, will we need passports? Is there something that we're missing in our thought process? Is there something important about what will be available to us when we go there? So that's the information piece, information gathering. And then I did talk about values, but then when you're actually going to evaluate which options, you could make a chart. It's called a weight and rate chart. And so, for example, if I did this with my own family, we were considering going to Hawaii and some other locations. And so for all of us, beach and weather and warmth was going to be an important factor. And that shouldn't be a surprise because we live in rainy Seattle. But once we identified that that was one of the key important things for our family, it easily made the choice clear because the other options didn't have that. So we were able to rank our choices and our preferences. Yeah. And then integrating, like, I remember asking my husband and my two sons on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, woohoo, I'm ready to book the trip to Hawaii. I asked my husband, he was like, it's a 10 for me. And I think the kids were close to like 8 or 9. And for me, it was also like an 8 or 9. So we realized that all our hopes and expectations about this trip to Hawaii we were hoping they were going to be satisfied, and we felt ready to move. And as a unit, like, we were all ready to say yes. And then when we got there, it was a lovely experience because no one was kind of feeling disappointed that, their values and the things that they wanted to do were absolutely considered in the planning. So yeah, I mean, it was probably the best vacation we've ever had.
Yeah, that's interesting. But how about smaller decisions? Like, the vacation doesn't happen often, right? Once in a while, you can sit down and do the planning. How about decisions that happen in the moment? We make small and big decisions, micro and macro decisions.
Yeah.
Can the same be applied to those daily mundane decisions as well?
Yes. So in the moment decisions, you are not going to have time to go through the whole decision process unless you consciously say, you know what, I need a tool because I don't know what to do. But daily decisions, I mean, I think you can do an abbreviated process. Do you happen to have any examples in your life right now that are kind of an opportunity to apply this to? Something?
I do have an example, but
okay.
I made a very reactive decision yesterday, and I'm regretting it today. I blocked someone. In a conversation with someone, I got really frustrated, but we also have a history. I'm not going to go into it. And I just, instead of losing my cool, I just exited the conversation and blocked this person's number, blocked all social media and things like that. And I think it was a very immature, in the moment, rush, quote unquote, decision, which felt so right in that moment. And that was the decision that I was making. But today, I'm questioning it. And I should have given more thought, because if I gave more thought, definitely I would have never acted like that. Yeah. Will this example serve, or this is not a good?
Well, I think there's definitely some learning that we can explore together. So it sounds like that you have some regret about a decision that you made, and you have a couple options. One, I would say, if you give yourself some compassion about, in the moment, that was the best solution that you could choose, right? There was, like, you weren't full of creative ideas about, well, maybe we can talk about it, or maybe I can, like, take a time out. Like, you really couldn't think of any other actions you could take. So
because I had done those before already, those things that you mentioned, I had done those before.
Yeah. So in that moment, that was the kindest thing that you could possibly do, was to cut off communication and to block, so that you could give yourself some space
and create a boundary. Yeah, that's right. What I said to myself.
Yeah. And if it's not, I mean, it's good to know, is this about a punishment, or is this because I need space? I need space. I don't want to connect right now. Okay. And then now you're sitting with the feeling of like, I wish that it could have gone differently. I wish that I was resourced in that moment and that I could choose something different. But you do have a choice now. you have a choice to invite yourself. Hannah, would you like to unblock that person? Would you like to invite that person to have a conversation? Or are you satisfied with keeping the boundary for now?
I am satisfied with keeping the boundary.
Okay. So the regret's not so much about the action you took. The regret is more about
the loss of the person. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
guilt. I have guilt. The way I did it makes me feel guilty.
Okay. How would you have preferred that you handled it?
I would have preferred to have a normal, quote unquote, normal conversation, not in the heat of an argument, when things are normal and positive, and say that I need a boundary, that I need this to end, something like that, but not in the moment. I think abruptly and harshly like that. I feel very guilty about it.
Mm-hmm. So is there anything you'd like to invite yourself to do that could honor what you spoke about? Kind of like a redo, a do-over. Is there some action you can take now, even with the boundary in place, that could communicate the care that you have for this person and the regret about how the action happened in that moment?
Oh my gosh, no, I don't want to do it. And that's where I have a resentment. I feel like it won't look good for me in terms of my pride. No matter what, I'm going to stand behind my action. And I don't want to take it further, invite the person or apologize or talk. I think that's it. I'm going to stand behind my immature, terrible act. And I am not even wanting to repair. I think I should be okay with it. That's where I am now. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can sit with that for a while. You know, I'm not saying that there is that you should go and repair and connect. It's if you feel called to, and if that would help you process. And we all take actions that fall short of our, expectations of ourselves. And I think that, especially around decision making, this happens, right? And so you do have a choice. And if you still consciously choose that the boundaries, the action was taken, the boundary is there, and although there's some regret, it does meet more of your needs to keep that closed, to keep the communication closed. And that's, that's what you're choosing.
Yeah. I have to remind myself of the need. Why did I do that? What need am I meeting of mine now? And by keeping this situation, what need am I meeting of mine? Is that right?
Yeah, certainly. And you can still have like silent empathy for the other person. Like you can still have compassion in your mind and your heart about how that might have been for that person and for yourself, holding that for yourself. Like it sounds like you really value relationships and the way you communicate. And so out of protection, not wanting to react harshly and in a way that's not in alignment with how you really, really desire to be, it sounds like you're not ready for having connection again. And because of previous history, you think it's highly unlikely that you will be able to maintain that level of connection, that quality of connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coaching me through this. It's really helpful. It's really helpful.
Yeah. I mean, and you can hold both. You can hold the awareness that you acted in a way that you have some regret about, but you also see that you're meeting some needs, and it's complicated. So if you're okay with moving on to the fourth step after decision process, the action. So none of us are born project management experts, and it's important to have tools in our toolbox so that we can hack our habits and stay motivated. And so especially for young people, it can be overwhelming. And so we want to gradually increase their autonomy. Sometimes we might ask our children to go to their rooms and to tidy up. And it can be overwhelming for some kids. So, if we break the tasks into small, actionable requests, like specific things that they can do, it can be helpful because it could be overwhelming for them. And that's just a small example. But when kids get older, sometimes they have homework journals or calendars that they need to keep track of assignments. Also, when we have personal goals, sometimes people seek out like personal trainers, people that can hold them accountable for the things that they say they want to achieve. And it's time management and little tricks, like even using a timer. I don't know if you ever use a timer for yourself, but if I feel overwhelmed about a project, and I want to chunk it down, I might say, I'm going to do concentrated work for 30 minutes, and then I'm going to take a break. And our brain needs that because we can actually get cognitive fatigue when we're making decisions, when we're concentrating on something, when we're working hard at it. So
I do something. I don't use a timer, but I use this thing that I created for myself, the 3 songs method, I call it. I listen to 3 songs on my playlist on Spotify. And after the 3, let's say I want to do boring laundry folding or something of that nature, I say it only takes 3 songs and I'm going to enjoy these songs. I put my headphones, I listen to 3 songs, I do the task, and when it's done, I'm done. So it's kind of like a timer. And obviously each song has different duration. But I always go with the 3 songs, and it's, I don't know, it's working for me.
Yeah, it's so juicy when you find the tool that works for you. And I think, what works for me and helps me stay motivated is going to be different. Especially, I love to kind of dig deeper into personality preferences and traits. I think there are some people that are list makers.
My daughter is a list maker. She even makes lists what she's going to eat for the entire week for breakfast, what drinks she's going to make for herself during this time. Yeah, she's a big list maker.
Yeah, and it brings her comfort because there's order and structure. I'm guessing she values order and structure.
Yes, she does.
Routine and familiarity. Yeah, and it's really cool. Like and sometimes people like variety. And so finding ways to kind of balance each other out. I know that in some ways I can get really structured, and in other ways, I need more structure, like around exercise, for example. I love when you said that you listen to music and it motivates you to do the laundry tasks. So for me, I do enjoy talking and connecting with people, and I don't love exercise.
Who does? Who does?
So if I can, I know. So if I can talk with a girlfriend, either, in person or on the phone, it's like I walk and talk. And then I'm getting 2 for 1. I love it.
We should live near each other. It sounds like we have similar interests.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah. And so with the 6-step process, just wanted to review, and I can share a template with families that have some questions that can help them move through the 6-step process. But the final step is action, which we just kind of talked about. And if you find that you're not motivated to take action, if you made an agreement to yourself or to other people and you're just not feeling it, it means that we've missed something in the process. Either there's information that's missing, or we haven't considered some values that are really important. There's something missing. And especially with people that are really into logic, like the numbers are there. It makes sense. This is a no-brainer. If we don't feel motivated, right? If we're not, if there's no deeper excitement or curiosity, then we know we've missed something in the process.
So how about people who love making pros and cons type of decision making process. It's their way of making a list, which I've never done. I have to be honest. And I have a hard time trusting that process. How can someone make a pros and cons and make a cold decision like that? I think in my life, I'm currently thinking that not on the previous example I gave, but I think I make good decisions. I would like to think that way, but I don't have a formal process, obviously, that I go through. I do trust my inner guidance, my intuition, the sense that I have about a thing or a proposal or a project or a person. I do trust that too when I'm making decisions. But I also do what's the worst thing that can happen type of thinking. What would be the benefit of this? I never make a list. These are the pros. Right now, for example, maybe this is a good example. I have an office space currently where I used to live. I moved a year ago to a new location, and everything is very pricey here. But I would love to have an office downtown where I live. And so an opportunity came. Someone is subleasing an office, and it popped up on Facebook. It's a person I know. The space looks amazing. The price sounds amazing. It's the same amount as I'm paying in my current location. And I was thinking, wow, my gut feeling tells me, go for it, Anna. This is the office. Like, you have nothing to lose. You want it, it's close by where you live. It's the second floor office that you wanted. It has the windows. It has the feel that you wanted. But then on the other hand, the voice inside me says, my old clients will not come here. How about my office that I put sweat and tears into decorating and making it my own? I don't want to be a sublet. I want to have my own space. And so I have all these thoughts, and I was thinking, maybe I should make a pros and cons list. And I'm like, no, that's not my style. So help me with this decision.
Sure.
By applying this method, maybe in a quick way.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So you said the biggest fear that you have is actually that you'd lose clients when you move location.
That's right. The people who come from that area will not drive.
Right. It may not be convenient. Mm-hmm. Is there some assumption that you could be making? Is there a way that you can actually confirm, is that guess or fear true?
It's not true. Yeah, if I look deeply, it's not true. And plus, I can get clients here, of course. If I'm here, people will know that I'm here. And so I will concentrate on marketing here.
But you can actually get data. You could actually check in with the clients that are seeing you at that location and say, if I move location, would you still be willing? And there's also a hybrid. Like, I don't know if you coach people and see clients like telemedicine or
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you could check in and then you'll have actual data. So you won't have to guess. You could say, I'm considering moving locations. And then that can help you in your evaluation. If 3 people say, yeah, that's too far and I don't want to do online, then you'll know I might lose 3 people, but you'll actually have data, right? Mm. I mean, I think in your heart, you're trusting, even if 100% of your clients said, oh, we don't want to make the transition. That's very unlikely, but there may still be something that's so like evocative and exciting about this new space that's calling you. Like we have to, and the pros cons list is very simple because it doesn't actually evaluate. Maybe you're ready for something new. Maybe you want to change. Maybe the convenience of having it close to your home is more valuable and you're willing to do the work to generate clients in that area.
Yes.
So a weight and rate is a different tool, which I can share with you. Yeah. The other thing you mentioned was the beauty that you developed in your space, the way it's decorated, the color scheme. So there's an ethereal feeling. There's something that's evoked in your mind and in your heart when you think about that space. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So And sometimes we talk about the sunk cost bias,
Mm-hmm.
like that we've already invested so much in this space or in those clients or in this project that we can't let go of it. But in this case, you're not really letting go. You may lose some things, but you're also looking to gain some things. And so with those feelings and that you care about in your other space, is there a way that you could bring that into your new space if you choose to move?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I can bring my artwork and my plants. That's the main thing that I care about. Yeah. Yeah. I think so. And this new place is a lot bigger and brighter, and the windows are just amazing. Yeah. I think I can.
Mm-hmm.
It won't be fully the same. And I think I'm not expecting it to be the same, but I think there is a sense of fear of the unknown. I already know that this works. This is my space and I'm used to it. And but this one, what if it doesn't work out the same way? That's there too. The loss that, okay, this is the end of this office. I have to say goodbye and move on to the next chapter. Oh my gosh, I'm not ready. Maybe I should keep both offices, so when I miss the old office, I'll go back. So this is going on through my head too.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that we teach is that the decisions that we make,
Mm-hmm.
if we go through the process of trying to, identify important information and recognize our values, and then when we actually take an action, the thing is that we don't control the outcome. So you can only make the best decision based on the effort that you put in the process of your decision making, but we don't control the outcome. So there's no guarantee. There is uncertainty, but you reduce the risk of being dissatisfied with your decision with the effort and the thought that you put when you're actually going through the process. So, and even if you do it intuitively, and it's not a linear approach, I mean, you can loop back as many times as you need to. And as you're tracking those concerns, I mean, maybe you want to keep a journal.
Mm-hmm.
You said you don't do pros and cons lists, but maybe you can keep a journal about, okay, I have this concern. And then you can invite yourself, what will I do about this? And is this likely or very unlikely? And is there any data to, support it? And then in a lot of personal decisions, there is no data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Business decisions, you can find more data. Like I'm sure you could research if you move office space, what's the likelihood, what's the attrition rate, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also we're in a very interesting time because it's, we're dealing with COVID. So we don't have much data about how that will impact businesses. So yeah, I mean, we just do the best we can. We apply the process and, that's it. We can control our decisions. We cannot control the outcome.
Yeah, that's a good relief right there. Right? When you know that you can't control the outcome, so you can do your best in making the best decision that you can, put your efforts into making the decision, the process of decision making better. And that's it. And hopefully it will work out.
Absolutely. And I think the more that and this is the thing about parenting and decision making, the more we practice and the more opportunities that we have, the more we can grow our self-trust. If we live in an environment that's sterile and that, it has been chosen for us, and we wait until we're in a high-stakes situation, most people don't feel confident in their decision making because they haven't really had a lot of opportunity and they haven't been given tools. Like I wasn't taught this in school. And this is why we are so passionate about sharing this with young people and the adults who care about them, because we need these tools. And I think that unfortunately, when people go through school, a lot of choices are made for them. And when they get to a college campus or they get into their first major relationships, they're just not sure because most of the decisions, important decisions, were made for them. And I love that, in authentic parenting, there's dialogue and that these skills are actually being developed in families that care about this.
Yes, yes. I also am a big fan of helping kids participate in the process, make decisions for themselves so that they can develop responsibility and trust themselves and learn how to make decisions in life, right? If we make all the decisions for them, and by default, we are making the big decisions, right? What school district to go to, where to live, and all of that. And there isn't that much room for them to practice decision making skills. And so that's why they make a lot of mistakes, even when they are young. But helping them with this process, I think, is great. So, how can we teach this to children? What would it look like? The same way as you teach to adults, maybe on an example, we can illustrate very briefly.
Sure. So we have some free downloadable PDF files. So we have the decision wheel that has prompting questions. We have, I'll make sure that you have a link to be able to share these resources. I think it's important to have visual tools. And then right now we're actually teaching a free parenting course, and we have the 4 units that goes over the basics of the Vita model. So that's available to everyone. The videos are also on YouTube. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of books written about how adults can share decision-making tools with kids. And that's why we're developing this. I think that when we talk about having family meetings, even really young children, they get to have a voice about decisions about, what the meals are going to be served. And like our family, we chose about the vacation, maybe the sports that your child chooses to play or the hobbies that they have. Really, I know it takes time to have these conversations, but I think the results definitely improve. The follow through, the commitment. Like sometimes kids, want to do hobbies, and then parents will go out and invest in the equipment, and then they find out it wasn't quite a good match. And so asking, I'm curious, honey, you said you wanted to join the lacrosse team or soccer team, or you want to take ballet, or, any kind of decision that a family's facing. The more conversation that we have about it, the more collaborative that we are, I think the satisfaction in the end decision is going to increase exponentially.
Yeah, I agree. And not wanting our children to just listen to us because we said so.
Right, because I think that raises adults that don't trust themselves, and then they might be looking for authority outside of themselves to defer to. And I think, we started this conversation about when parents get a lot of different messages about what they should be doing and how they should be doing it, and really trusting their intuition. No one cares for your child more than you do. And you are so dedicated to their well-being. And parenting is such a journey. It's such a learning opportunity, self-growth. And there's no other relationship like it. It's such a gift to be in a parenting relationship, and try to be conscious about it at the same time. Like most of us were not raised this way. And so learning by doing and adjusting, and recognizing that this is something that we need to approach with self-compassion, because it's not easy.
Yes, I agree. So where can the listener find you online and all the downloadables? Of course, I will have links to those, but where can people connect with you, follow you on social media, and get more info about the decision-making process and everything else you do, the nonprofit and all?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so our nonprofit website is clarity and then the number 4action.org. And we have an Instagram, and a Facebook parent group and a parent page. And we have some YouTube videos that we share. And there are some downloadable resources. Like I mentioned, we have the Vita Overview Parenting mini course right now. So that has quite a few resources in it, our page, downloadables. And then my personal website is Kristen, Kristen, Jawad, JAWAD.com. And so I do some coaching for parents, and not just about decision making, but also nonviolent communication, and also supporting people with highly sensitive children. Yeah.
That's great. Don't you just love the nonviolent communication model? I think it's one of the best things that I have encountered, came across with. I think I also use it in my practice. Mm-hmm. Obviously I modify, but I use the information, the needs, the values, heavily in my work too.
Yeah, I would say that it was life changing for me. When my oldest son was about 2.5, I went to a parenting workshop. And I thought, this is going to be so amazing. I'm going to learn how to talk to my kids and not feel guilty about it. And they're going to, cooperate and do what I ask. Oh my goodness. It was mind blowing when I realized that 90% of my parenting was actually going to be my internal dialogue before I even opened my mouth to communicate to my kids. I wanted to connect with myself, and learning how to do self-empathy was such a gift. I feel really blessed that when Marshall Rosenberg was alive, he came to Seattle many times, and I was lucky enough to be there. And, I found out about nonviolent communication through a parenting group and was facilitating moms groups. And this work, I truly believe it can transform the world. And I hope that people make this a priority to even just to download the feelings and the needs list. I mean, it's such a gift to be able to communicate. I wasn't taught this growing up, and it's lovely.
Yes, I agree. Yes, and I will have links to a couple of other episodes that we have done. Mm-hmm. One is with Oren J. Sofer. I think it's called Mindful Communication. It has a longer title. Oren J. Sofer has written a book, and he uses the nonviolent communication model. So that's a great episode from our past for the listener to either re-listen or discover anew. And there is another one. I think I have a few episodes that talk about the nonviolent communication model, and I'll have to link the episodes in the show notes. I can't remember the titles or the numbers of the episodes, of course, but we have done, we've covered this. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. And I think of myself first as a student and then a teacher. And so I know I'm attracted to things that are meaningful in my life. And when I find a resource, I like sharing it with people. And I know that you feel the same way, and I am going to go listen to those episodes.
Yes, I'll send you privately those episodes. Okay. I'll find them quickly. Mm-hmm. Well, again, Kristen, thank you so much. I truly appreciate our time together. Great conversation, and sorry that I used myself and to do sort of like this coaching. I took advantage of your time, but it was very helpful for me. And I apologize that my own examples were not parenting related, but that's what I'm going through in life. So I always bring something from my life to the podcast. And I think the listeners know me a little bit by now.
Well, you're a whole person. And I want to share my appreciation truly for the trust that you put in me, for bringing those real life examples. And my style of learning is that if something is real, I feel more connected to it if it's a live issue, even if it's something that happened in the past versus, a hypothetical situation. So I love talking about things that are, alive in the moment.
Great. Well, see, even more reason we should be neighbors. And on that note, thank you so much and a big virtual hug.
Oh, you too. Thank you so much.